I wanted to kind of do a video to talk about some of the concepts that I addressed in the article regarding enhanced data for subdivisions. And I just want to go through a couple projects and kind of show you how our clients use these things and what we do to help them out. This first one is kind of the beginning of a little, it's probably a townhome type of a project. You'll see these are larger pads with a few units, looks like possibly four on this one here, maybe. And if you can if you can imagine, what we've done here is this is like the first part of the grading plan. Now, the streets are in really good shape. We're able to build the streets without any changes, but you'll see in areas where these flat pads are supposed to be, like over here, this is a real extreme example. This is a high point here, and we had to extend that high point kind of up into this pad here because during the grading it was necessary to maintain some water movement and to kind of keep the site clear, so water was kind of shedded until they came in and started doing the pad. So this is an interim grading plan, but a final street plan. So it's really kind of a combination of both. Here we are coming into the subdivision. You'll see here that's the entryway. And if we come over here, you'll see cul-de-sac on each end. And these pads are not quite flat, but we're starting to get there. So this is kind of rough grading on the pads and finish grading on the street. So this allows a contractor to go in and get a lot of work done and not have to mess around um, with two street models. They didn't need an overbuild. They didn't need a gut section on this, so it was pretty simple. And the other thing is, if we can come in and give you a decent start to get information from the from the plans and only require one more surface, and in this case it's a surface for the pads, that helps reduce confusion. I mean, let's face it, we could do 8 or 10 different surfaces and drive everybody crazy if it's necessary, but in this case it really isn't. So let's do good streets, let's get the initial grading out of the way, and as it comes down to pads, yes, they could come in and hit these pad grades just with GPS and kind of do an overbuild and square them up, which is how they're going to be done anyways. So it's really easy for them to do it unless they wanted us to come in and knock out one of these pad surface files for them. If we look here, you'll see that this swale is in place, and also some of the grading here, kind of uh, the site grading that brings a tie-in from this roadway into this property. We fully got the median and the entryway in, and we're just getting ready to kind of finalize the pads as they get closer to the job, and this thing will be good. Let's take a peek at another one that has some other interesting information in it. This is a subdivision that we did a while back, and this gives you a good example of what goes on with basements and how we kind of put those together. Um, Now, this is really unique in the respect that we've got uh, kind of you'll see a little bit of a pad line here and then a pad line here. So this is a true walkout basement. You'll see they're 10 feet apart, so that gives them a chance to put in the first floor, and then there's a full basement, and then it's a walkout, so it'll be 2 or possibly 3 stories on this lower spot over here. Now, um, a lot of times we're asked to do specifics as far as actually cutting in for the basement excavation, but because there's several different models of houses, they're not sure the footprints of what's going to sell. So we just do an initial grading that basically slopes this area. And then let me give you a quick profile here to kind of show you what this looks like. So what I'm going to do is take you from the street all the way over and kind of show you what this looks like. I think that'll work. So here's what we have. Let me kind of bring this in so you can see everything vertically. Now you'll see the triangle that's kind of in the center line of the street. Now that kind of shows you where this cross section is, so you can get a feel for what's happening. So here's the thought process for the grading in this subdivision. Here's the street, here's a parkway area, and then we come into, you see the slope kind of ends there, and there's a flat pad area here. And then what we do is we pick up a steep slope here. Okay, it's about a 2-to-1 slope, and we come down to a lower pad elevation. So what's going to happen is the excavation material from that basement that goes into this high part here is going to actually be used for grading in the lower part as they get it finished up. So they're not going to have a lot of excess dirt to move out of there, because when you've got these things all nicely graded, you don't want to have to cart too much dirt off. So we kind of did this so they would have that room and got an average. Yeah, there's going to be some movement of dirt, but it's going to be pretty simple to come in and get this thing put together and hopefully not have either a lot of import required or excess. And if there is, chances are it can be taken from a few lots down the street. And in this one, there's not a ton of these. You see this back row here has even more unusual stuff going on. Let's take a look here, because this is pretty neat. I'll start here again in the street, and let's go up to the end. And what we have is that pad section. So here's our street, and we come up and we've got a pad here, and then we come and drop down to the lower pad. And then from there, what happens is this property slopes down to a retaining wall. You'll see the vertical drop here, and then goes off into either a neighboring area, or this is maybe future grading, it looks like over here. So this combines the elements from that previous one, and as opposed to having a lot behind it that is near the same elevation, this actually slopes down and then ends up going off the end of this tract, at least for this moment, and then other building will happen on the other side of it. So this takes and adds another dimension to it. Let's take a look at this in a surface view. Chad Lawson did a great job on this thing. This is a really cool little subdivision. I don't know where it is, but it's really neat. So what I want to do, I don't have to do a lot of vertical exaggeration because there's a lot going on here. Let's take a look at some street-to-street stuff here. So this is that first group I kind of showed you. So we have a street. Yeah, let's jack this up just a little bit. Let's go to about 3. There you go. You can see the street here. Here's the street. We come up. There's that first pad, and it drops down to the second pad. And if I can spin around, you'll kind of see that from lot to lot, we've got a drop here. So we have to respect that slope, but also we don't want it too steep because there's not a wall being built there. So where these slopes are a good couple feet apart, we want to make sure that there's a little bit of room so that embankment doesn't kind of fall apart and slough off real quick. And then this is another area where the roadway just goes off and ends up sloping down. And then we have the streets, which are really, really nice. This is a good detailed street section. And if I can just bring in the wireframe here for a second, and you'll see what we have is some good tight curbs, a really decent street here. And this is, again, full streets. You'll see the sidewalk, and then we go up to a pad. This is a probably a little track section here that's just kind of common area next to this, adjacent to this structure here. And if we can get these things right and allow the contractor to go in, dial down, get a rough grade, come back, get fine grade, set curb, and other enhancements that can be done to this are uh, a lot of improvements with, let's say they wanted back a curb, we could give them 3 foot back a curb offsets, as I've talked about before. The sidewalk slope, we can run at 2% or maybe 1.5%, so we don't go over that 2% maximum. Um, the pads, we can go in and either do something that we did here where we designed in some pads that give them an average idea of what we can do so they don't have too much material that gets wasted on the site. Um, Utilities on this one, there were just a bunch of utilities that we went in and did three-dimensional. I'll cover those in another presentation because they're an animal all to themselves. But this is one of those things where we can come in and design these things in a practical aspect to give the contractor better ability and a lot better maneuverability with using the dirt, not wasting or not having to bring in too much, and just kind of make things a little bit easier along the way. So after these roads are done and we start putting these houses in, we're just not moving more dirt than we have to around the job site. As always, any questions or comments, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to help any way I can. Have a great day.